Welcome to S&C Sidebar, where we talk with our different partners about some of the most interesting legal issues they've seen in their careers and what they're seeing on the horizon, among other topics. I'm Amanda Davidoff, Managing Partner of Sullivan and Cromwell's Washington, D.C. office and Deputy Managing Partner of the Litigation Group. Today, we're joined by Samantha Hynes, who is a partner in the firm's litigation group. Her practice focuses on antitrust matters, including civil litigation and merger reviews at the U.S. Department of Justice and the Federal Trade Commission, and also includes commercial litigation matters. Sam has been a partner since 2022. Welcome, Sam. Let's get started. So the first question I have for you is a look back at your whole career, and I'll start there. What are some of the most interesting issues you've worked on in cases throughout your career?
So I came to S&C as a generalist litigator, and I've worked on a wide variety of cases throughout my career here, including antitrust litigation, securities litigation, a bankruptcy proceeding, an arbitration and an employment dispute, and even a case representing Major League Baseball in which we successfully persuaded a federal judge to reject an emergency motion by an advocacy group that was seeking a preliminary injunction to move the All-Star game to Atlanta after Major League Baseball had moved it to Denver to protest Georgia's new voting laws. So a wide variety. But the work that I find the most interesting is the work that I do representing clients in merger reviews at the Antitrust Division of the U.S. Department of Justice and the Federal Trade Commission. I've represented clients spanning a variety of industries, including biopharmaceuticals, food and grocery, airlines, oil and gas. And on each of those matters, I get to dig in and learn everything I can about my client's business so that I can then use that information to help explain the industry to regulators and hopefully get our deals done. So if you're someone who loves learning, and I'm somebody who loves learning, you always get to learn something new when you work on those merger clearance matters.
Boy, that does sound interesting. You're really selling the practice.
I'll convince you to come on over, Amanda.
I mean, it's interesting to hear about your generalist upbringing. How does the generalist approach continue to weave into your practice, particularly as you have focused in on antitrust matters?
Yeah, so even though I'm focused on antitrust and sometimes it's more interacting with agencies rather than traditional litigation, it's really important to have had that upbringing and that skill set because the backstop of the merger clearance process is if the agencies don't agree with you that the transaction isn't going to lessen competition, they sue and they go to court and they try to get an injunction. And so as a trained litigator, I can be thinking about how to best build our case in case our clients wind up in that situation. And then if we do wind up in court, I can carry the case all the way through. So it's really important that I had that upbringing and I have those skills because we are winding up in court more these days because the agencies are challenging transactions more than they used to in the past.
That's great. Well, as someone who has litigated alongside you, I would say you're definitely a credible threat. So that probably works out quite well for you as a backstop. Now, you and I are in the Washington, D.C. office of Sullivan and Cromwell. How has being in the D.C. office influenced your practice, particularly your antitrust practice?
Yeah, so obviously it's good to be where the action is. The FTC is here, the DOJ is here, and a lot of the people on the antitrust bar are here. So it's good to be in the place that's the center of where things happen. But then I've also had a lot of great mentors in the DC office that were focused on antitrust. And I think that led to me pursuing a career in that area. So Joe Metellus, when I first started here, got me hooked on antitrust law. I did my first matter with him. Renata Hesse, who joined the firm when I was a mid-level associate, became an instant mentor to me and introduced me to people in the antitrust bar. And then Daryl Lebo, who is our beloved leader of the DC office until his passing in November 2018, really encouraged me to pursue antitrust matters. And his encouragement was probably a turning point for my career where I turned in that direction. So it's a great place to practice law, and there's a lot of great people.
Wonderful. Sounds like a very close-knit community. What are the high-level legal developments in the antitrust area that you think clients need to keep their eye on?
The big one I would flag is AI. I think it's fair to say that there's a sentiment among antitrust regulators that they kind of missed the boat on some of the growth of the big tech companies, and they don't want to miss the boat on AI. And so they're all over monitoring not just the growth and the behavior of the AI platforms, but also how all types of firms are using AI in their business practices to see whether or not any use of AI could lead to anti-competitive effects. So I think anytime any kind of firm is thinking about implementing AI in its business practices, one of the things they should be thinking through is whether or not it potentially has competition implications.
Great. I want to turn now to sort of your work practices and how you work with clients. One thing that's often asked of successful litigators is, what are you doing right? And what do you recommend that others do? So I'll turn that question to you. What do you think is the most important part of working with clients to foster a strong and productive relationship that ultimately leads to success?
I think you need to build genuine relationships. Often it's really important to give candid, truthful advice. And the best way to be able to do that is to have a genuine and relationship and trust with the client. And I think you really need to dig in and roll up your sleeves and learn their businesses. And that's because, not just because that's the way to best be able to advocate for the client on the matter you're on, but often our clients are repeat players. I might be helping them with one deal that's one of many deals they plan on doing over the next decade. And it's really important to understand their full strategy and really understand their businesses so that we can best help them not only get this deal through, but make sure that we're positioning well to be able to meet those objectives throughout the trajectory of their growth.
It sounds productive. Now, Samantha, you're a relatively young partner and had a pretty meteoric and direct rise through the firm in a relatively short period of time. So I'm sure there are lots of people interested in how you got there. What advice do you have for associates who are looking to focus on becoming a partner?
So do your best on every assignment, but then also be thinking beyond the assignment. So don't just focus narrowly on what you're doing at hand, but think about how that project fits into the greater whole of the matter and how that matter fits into the client's overall goals. I think that's important. I would also demonstrate that you can be a leader in your practice area by keeping up on legal and policy developments impacting clients. Clients always want to hear about what they should be thinking about next, and showing that you're somebody that thinks strategically about that makes you both invaluable to clients and really helpful resource to the partners and other lawyers at the firm. And then take ownership of your work and career path. So I think the most successful people, but then also the most satisfied people, are lawyers who proactively seek out the matters that they want to work on and that they'll enjoy. And when you're working with somebody who really enjoys what they're doing and is interested and engaged, you just can build really good relationships and get really good learning experiences.
That's all great advice. Thanks for sharing, and thanks for this interesting conversation.
Thanks, Amanda.